Welcome. I go by Dark Veil, and these are my tales. Let's get started. I need you to understand something before you decide whether to keep listening. There is a sound you cannot hear that makes children walk into water. I know because I recorded it, I analyzed it, and I tried to stop it. My 7-year-old daughter is humming a melody I've never taught her. This isn't a confession. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm a sound engineer, not a monster. But after what I found in those recordings, after what I watched happen to those kids, the police won't believe me. My own wife won't look at me. So I'm putting this out there because someone needs to know the truth before it happens again. And it will happen again. The pattern doesn't stop. My name is Desmond Vite. I've spent 15 years designing acoustic solutions for concert halls and recording studios. Boring work mostly. Frequency response curves, reverberation times, the kind of technical stuff that makes people's eyes glaze over at parties, which is fine. I prefer equipment to people anyway. Last April, the town of Thornback hired me to investigate a noise complaint. Residents near Lake Vermillion reported hearing a low humming sound at night. Nothing dramatic, just persistent enough to disrupt sleep and make people irritable. The mayor wanted it solved before tourist season. Standard job, really. I set up monitoring equipment at 6 locations around the lake. Placed hydrophones in the water to check for underwater sources. Even tested the old grain mill on the North Shore, thinking maybe the Historical Preservation Committee had missed some structural issue causing vibrations. 3 weeks of data collection. Nothing unusual in the audible range, but here's where it gets interesting. I was reviewing the infrasonic recordings at my hotel, frequencies below 20 hertz, below what human ears can consciously detect. Most engineers don't even bother with this range. It's just ambient noise, geological rumbles, wind patterns, stuff that doesn't matter for typical acoustic problems. Except I found a signal. Staring at the waveform made my eyes ache. Not the way screens do when you've been working too long. This was different. A pressure behind my eyeballs, like something was trying to push its way out. I had to blink and kept blinking. My vision would blur every time I looked directly at the 47-second pattern. I checked the frequency, 7 hertz, the resonant frequency of the human eyeball. I was literally vibrating my own eyes just by looking at the representation of the sound. Not random noise, a deliberate pattern repeating every 47 seconds, centered at 7 hertz, perfectly consistent across all 6 monitoring stations, like something was broadcasting. Now, 7 hertz is interesting for a very specific reason beyond the eye thing. Exposure to sounds at this frequency can cause optical illusions, feelings of unease. At higher amplitudes, it can induce extreme fear responses. Some researchers call it the ghost frequency because it makes people think they're seeing things that aren't there. But this signal wasn't strong enough for that. It barely registered above background levels. So why maintain such a precise, repeating pattern? I started cross-referencing the timing. The signal only appeared between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. only on nights when the lunar phase was between 40 and 60%, and only when the population of Thornback plus visitors exceeded 8,000 people. That last parameter bothered me. How could a sound be conditional on population density? It made no sense. I mentioned my findings to Mayor Pritchard. Sweet lady, probably in her 60s, been running Thornback since before I was born. She got this weird expression when I explained about the infrasonic signal. Not confusion, recognition. "Did you check the church records?" she asked. I laughed. I actually laughed. What would church records have to do with acoustic anomalies? But she wasn't joking. She took me to St. Alhelms, the stone church on Prospect Hill, and showed me the archives. Handwritten records dating back to 1891, when the church was built. Baptisms, marriages, funerals, and disappearances. Every 23 to 27 years, a cluster of children would vanish, always between 5 and 12 years old, always during the spring months, and always near the water. 1894, 7 children. 1919, 11 children. 1943, 9 children. 1967, 13 children. 1991, 8 children. The next cycle would be 2024, this year. They walk to the lake, Mayor Pritchard said quietly. Always the same. Parents wake up, find the front door open, children's beds empty. We search the shores, drag the lake. Sometimes we find them in the water. Sometimes we don't find them at all. Every time, she said, not looking at me, we tell ourselves it won't be our turn. I felt cold. How many so far this year? None yet, but it's only April. She handed me another document, a photocopy of something much older. The text in medieval German. She'd paperclipped a translation to it. It was a letter from a priest in Hamlin, dated 1284, describing an identical phenomenon. Children sleepwalking toward the Weser River, always on nights when a certain sound could be felt but not heard. The town had hired a traveling musician to investigate. The musician claimed he could play a counter-melody that would mask the underlying frequency. It worked for one night. The children stopped walking. Then the musician demanded payment. The town refused. The next night, 130 children walked into the Weser River and drowned. The letter described the musician's final words. "I didn't create the call. I only made you hear it differently. The pattern will find another instrument, another town. It feeds when the time is right." My hands were shaking when I finished reading. "You think this letter is related?" I asked. "You think some medieval German phenomenon is causing this?" "I think you found the same thing the man found 740 years ago," Pritchard said. "I think it's been happening since long before Hamlin. We just don't have the instruments to measure it." She was right. I didn't want her to be right, but she was right. I spent the next week digging through historical records, not just Thornback, towns across Europe, Asia, and North America, anywhere near significant bodies of water. I found 63 documented cases of mass children disappearances near lakes and rivers, all following the same pattern, all occurring in cycles of 23 to 27 years, all during periods when the town population exceeded a certain threshold. The population density was key. It had to be. But why? I consulted with a colleague at MIT who specializes in emergent acoustic phenomena. Sent her my data. She called me back at 2 a.m., which should have been my first warning that something was deeply wrong. Desmond, where did you get this? Monitoring equipment around a lake. Why? Long pause, because this looks like a standing wave interference pattern, but not from any natural or artificial source I recognize. It's like, well, imagine if a city's electrical grid, its water system, its traffic patterns, all created harmonic frequencies that combined into a single, coherent signal, but only when the system reached a certain complexity threshold. You're saying the town itself is generating this sound? Not intentionally, but yes, human activity concentrated above a certain density near certain geological features under specific environmental conditions. It creates this frequency, a byproduct of civilization reaching critical mass. But why would that make children walk into water? Another pause, longer this time. There's research into infrasonic manipulation of behavior, military applications mostly classified, but the basic principle is that certain frequency combinations can override consciousness decision-making. Not mind control exactly, more like making a suggestion feel like your own idea. At 7 hertz, with the right harmonic structure, you could potentially trigger deep brain instincts, migration patterns, herding behavior, to wherever the signal originates, which in your case appears to be the lake. I thought about those church records, children walking calmly out of their homes, no signs of struggle, parents sleeping peacefully while their kids left through unlocked doors. My daughter had sleptwalked once, age 4. I found her standing in our backyard at 2 a.m., completely asleep, trying to open the gate to the alley. When I asked her about it next morning, she said she'd been trying to get to the singing. We lived 6 blocks from Lake Michigan then. We live 3 blocks away now. I'd forgotten about that until this exact moment. How do I stop it? I asked, and I'm not sure my voice sounded right. You don't. You can't block infrasonic frequencies without massive infrastructure changes. The only option is to break the pattern before it completes, reduce the population below threshold, change the environmental conditions, or introduce a countersignal strong enough to disrupt the resonance. The same solution the Pied Pipers supposedly used, playing a different song. I worked for 3 days straight, designing a countersignal, multiple speakers around the lake, broadcasting a carefully calculated frequency pattern that would destructively interfere with the 7 hertz signal. It wasn't perfect, but it might work. Mayor Pritchard helped me get permits and funding. We installed the system on May 3rd, tested it that night. The monitoring equipment confirmed the interference pattern was working. The 7 hertz signal dropped below detectable levels. I celebrated with cheap whiskey in my hotel room. Thought I'd solved it. Sorry, I need a second. The whiskey doesn't help anymore. 2 nights later, the disappearances started. 15 children, ages 6 to 11, all walked out of their homes between midnight and 2 a.m. Parents found them at the lake shore, standing in the water up to their waists, completely unresponsive. We got them all back. They were fine, just confused about how they'd gotten there. But I checked my monitoring equipment. The counter signal was working perfectly. The 7 Hz frequency was completely suppressed. So what the hell had called them to the lake? I reviewed every sensor, every recording, looking for something I'd missed. And I found it. A new signal. 11 Hz this time, different harmonic structure, appearing only after my counter signal had been active for 24 hours. The pattern had adapted, changed instruments. I modified my counter signal to target 11 Hz, but before I even activated it, I saw something in the monitoring data that made my hands stop on the keyboard. The signal was already changing, shifting between 10.8 and 11.3 Hz, probing, testing frequencies in real time like something was searching for an opening. It wasn't just adapting after I blocked it, it was adapting while I planned my next move. 2 nights later, 6 more children disappeared. The signal had settled at 5 Hz. It was learning. Every time I blocked one frequency, it found another, like it was alive, like it was intelligent. No, not intelligent, adaptive. An emergent phenomenon responding to interference the same way water flows around a rock. I called my MIT colleague again. I told her what was happening. Wait a minute, let me turn this off for a second. She didn't want me recording that part, said it could implicate her professionally, but I'm keeping the rest in. People need to know. Stop, she said. Shut down your counter signal system right now. The kids. Desmond, you're making it worse. The original pattern was stable, predictable. 8 children every 23 to 27 years. Tragic, but limited. You're forcing it to evolve, to find new frequencies and new methods. You're teaching it to be more effective. I felt sick. So what do I do? Just let it take them? You document it. You warn other towns. You identify the conditions that trigger the pattern and help communities stay below the threshold. But you don't interfere directly, because every time you do, you give it new information and new strategies. I shut down the system that night. The signal returned to its original 7 Hz pattern within 48 hours. And you know what the worst part is? I checked those historical records again, really carefully this time. Hamlin, in 1284, had a population of 8,347. They hired the Pied Piper. Children stopped disappearing for one night. Then 130 drowned. Thornback, in 1991, had a population of 8,103. They hired an acoustic consultant. He installed some kind of sound system. 8 children disappeared over the next 3 nights. I'm the latest in a long line of experts who thought we could fix this with technology, with understanding. But the pattern doesn't care about understanding. It just is. A natural consequence of human density reaching critical mass near certain geological features. We built our cities. We concentrated our populations. We created the conditions for this frequency to emerge. And it will keep emerging. every 23 to 27 years in Thornback and 100 other towns, because we can't stop building, we can't stop growing, can't stay below the threshold. 3 more children disappeared last week. The tourist season just started, pushing our population over 9,000. The mayor is talking about hiring another consultant. I told her to evacuate, to close the hotels and send people away until the fall. She said that's not economically viable. So I'm leaving, taking my equipment, my research, all of it, because I can't watch what's going to happen when the pattern completes this cycle. But before I go, I need to tell you something about the letter from Hamlin, the priest's translation. There was a line at the bottom I didn't mention before. The children do not drown. They are not in the water. The musician saw them leave. He said they walked into the lake and kept walking down into the depths that cannot exist. He said the water closed over them like a door closing. He said he heard them singing. I set up a hydrophone last week, sank it as deep as the cable would reach, 200 feet down in Lake Vermillion. I'm listening to the recording right now. The 7 hertz signal is there, stronger than ever, but underneath it, barely audible, there's something else. Voices, high-pitched, young, singing a melody I've never heard before in a language I don't recognize. The same melody my daughter has been humming for 3 days. And the worst part? The part that makes my hands shake and my throat close up. Oh, God, I'm doing it right now. I didn't even realize. I've been humming it this entire recording. When I asked her where she learned it, she said the other kids taught her. We don't have neighbors with children. I need to go wake her up, make sure her bedroom door is locked from the outside, but I can't stop humming. Final note. Desmond Vite's hotel room in Thornback, Oregon, was found empty on May 27, 2024. His equipment was still there. His research was intact. His phone was on the bedside table, still recording. The last thing captured on the audio file was the sound of a door opening, footsteps leaving, and in the distance, very faint, children's voices singing. 23 children disappeared from Thornback between May 15th and June 3rd, 2024. 19 were found standing in Lake Vermillion. 4 were never recovered. The town's population is now 6,847, below threshold for now. And that concludes my latest tale. This is the first in a new series I'm developing to explore the origins of what we generally call fairy tales. It seems there's more to them than just cute, creepy children's tales. If you liked this one, please leave a comment and let me know what you thought, or subscribe. It really will help my small channel grow and get noticed by the algorithm. And until my next Dark Veil tale, have a frightfully fun day.